Good evening, my dear friend. As another day draws to its close, I want you to know that you are not alone in this quiet moment. Here in my study, with the soft lamplight casting gentle shadows on the walls, I feel the weight of another day settling around us both. The scriptures tell us in Psalm 4 verse 8, "In peace I will lie down and sleep for you alone." Lord, make me dwell in safety. Tonight is not an ending, but God's workshop where He works in silence while we rest. Before we begin this sacred journey together, I would love to know where you are joining me from tonight. Please take a moment to hit that like button if this prayer speaks to your heart, and subscribe for more moments of peace like this one. Now let us step into God's presence together and discover what He wants to do in your life tonight. Let me start by acknowledging something we both know. Every day leaves residue on our souls, doesn't it? I remember a particularly overwhelming Tuesday 3 months ago when everything seemed to pile up at once. The emails kept flooding in faster than I could respond, each one carrying its own urgency, its own demand for immediate attention. Then came that difficult phone call with my mother about her latest health concerns, her voice trembling with uncertainty about the test results that wouldn't come back for another week. Small frustrations accumulated like autumn leaves, each one insignificant alone, but together creating a heavy blanket of stress. You know this feeling, don't you? The way financial pressures circle back to our minds like persistent visitors we never invited. Bills that arrive faster than paychecks. Unexpected expenses that derail our careful budgets. Dreams that feel expensive and impossible. Health concerns creep in too, whether for ourselves or the people we love most. That persistent ache that might be nothing or might be something. The way our parents seem more fragile each time we visit. The exhaustion that sleep doesn't seem to cure anymore. Relationship tensions add their own weight. Conversations we wish we had handled differently replay in our minds like broken records. The things we said in frustration, the things we should have said, but didn't, the growing distance we feel from people we once felt close to. Career uncertainties shadow our confidence, making us question if we are on the right path, if we are enough, if our work matters in the grand scheme of things. Then there is the weight of unfinished business. Projects sitting half-completed on our desks, promises we made, but haven't fulfilled, goals we set with such enthusiasm that now feel like monuments to our inadequacy. Dreams that once felt within reach now seem further away than ever, mocking us from some distant horizon we are not sure we will ever reach. Our bodies carry this weight too. In our shoulders, that hunch forward, as if bracing against an invisible storm. In our breathing that becomes shallow and quick when we think too hard about tomorrow. In our restless minds that refuse to settle even when our bodies are exhausted. We tell ourselves the lie that if we just work harder, worry more effectively, control every variable, somehow we can fix it all. But tonight, God whispers the gentle contradiction that changes everything. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. These are not just beautiful words painted on coffee shop walls. They are an invitation to something our souls desperately need. There is something about nighttime that amplifies everything, isn't there? The problems that seemed manageable in the bright light of afternoon suddenly grow into giants when darkness falls. I remember a specific night last winter when sleep eluded me completely. The house felt too big and too quiet. Every creak of the settling wood sounding amplified in the silence. What had been simple concerns during daylight hours transformed into overwhelming anxieties that seemed to have their own life force. The vulnerability of darkness is real and raw. When the sun goes down, Our defenses come down with it. The busy distractions of daytime activity fade away, leaving space for all the thoughts we manage to keep at bay during our productive hours. The absence of activity makes room for anxious thoughts to march in like uninvited guests, setting up camp in our minds with their sleeping bags and their long-term plans. How silence can feel either peaceful or threatening, depending on what lives in our hearts. When we are at peace, silence becomes a sanctuary. When we are troubled, silence becomes an echo chamber for our fears. The night hours strip away our pretenses, our ability to stay busy enough to avoid the deeper questions about meaning and purpose, and whether we are truly living the life we were meant to live. We replay conversations from the day, analyzing every word, every pause, every facial expression, wondering if we said too much or too little, if we came across as confident or desperate, if people really meant what they said, or were just being polite. We worry about tomorrow's challenges before they even arrive, running through scenario after scenario in our minds, like a director rehearsing scenes for a play that may never be performed. The ache of loneliness settles in, even when surrounded by family. Sometimes, especially when surrounded by family. Because loneliness is not about being alone. It is about feeling unseen, unknown, carrying burdens that feel too heavy or too complicated to share. It is about lying next to someone you love and still feeling like you are on an island of your own experience that no one else can truly visit or understand. Nighttime dissolves our illusion of control like sugar in rain. During the day, we can stay busy enough to believe we are managing our lives effectively. We can make lists and check off tasks and feel productive and capable. But when we lie in bed in the darkness, we confront the truth that so much of life is beyond our ability to fix, control, or solve. We feel small against the enormity of existence, finite creatures trying to wrestle infinite questions into submission. Yet the scriptures tell us something beautiful about these vulnerable hours. Even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you. God doesn't abandon us when the sun goes down. He draws near in our vulnerability, closer than our next breath, more present than our next heartbeat. Tonight, we don't have to carry this alone. I have learned something powerful about surrender that I want to share with you tonight. There was a night about 2 years ago when I finally stopped trying to solve my sister's addiction. For months, I had been carrying the weight of her choices like they were my own responsibility. I would lie awake planning interventions, researching treatment centers, rehearsing conversations that might finally break through her denial. The burden was crushing me slowly, day by day, worry by worry. That night, I took her photo from my dresser and placed it on my nightstand. With trembling hands and a breaking heart, I whispered, "Oh, she's yours. I can't save her, but you can. I release her to you." The liberation that followed felt like exhaling after holding my breath for months. Not because the situation changed overnight, but because I finally understood the difference between caring and carrying, between love and control. Surrender is not what most of us think it is. It is not giving up, but giving over. Not passive resignation in the face of difficulty, but active trust in the face of mystery. Not the abandonment of our responsibilities, but partnership with the divine in ways that transcend our limited understanding and finite strength. There is a physical practice to surrender that changes everything. When we visualize placing our burdens into God's capable hands, something shifts in our nervous system. Our fists unclench, releasing the death grip we have been maintaining on circumstances beyond our control. Our breathing deepens and slows as we stop bracing against outcomes we cannot determine. Our shoulders drop as we set down weights we were never meant to carry alone. I know the fears that arise when we consider true surrender. What if God doesn't handle this situation the way I would? What if He allows pain I would prevent, or takes paths I would never choose? What if nothing changes and my surrender was just spiritual bypassing, avoiding the hard work of actually doing something? What if people think I am being irresponsible, checking out when I should be checking in? But the scriptures give us beautiful examples of surrender that led not to disaster, but to miracles. Hannah surrendering Samuel to serve in the temple, a choice that felt like death, but led to incredible purpose. Jesus in Gethsemane, surrendering to the Father's will, even when everything in His humanity wanted to choose a different path. Mary's response to the angel's impossible announcement, "Let it be unto me according to your word," not knowing how her yes would change the course of human history. The mystery of divine timing becomes clearer when we understand surrender. God works in seasons we cannot see or understand, planting in spring what will be harvested in fall, allowing winter seasons that feel like death, but are actually preparation for resurrection. His delays are often His protection, saving us from timing that would be premature from blessings we are not yet ready to steward well. There is a difference between His no and His not yet, and surrender teaches us to trust His wisdom even when we cannot see His hand. Tonight, I want to ask you something that might change everything. What would it feel like to truly let go? Not just intellectually understanding the concept of surrender, but actually releasing your grip on the outcomes you have been trying so desperately to control. What if peace is not something you achieve, but something you receive when you finally stop trying to be God in your own life? Let me tell you about the God who sees ahead, whose name is Jehovah Jireh. The Lord will provide. This is not just a beautiful title, but a promise written in the stars and proven through centuries of faithfulness. The story begins on Mount Moriah, where Abraham faced the most impossible test of his life. God had asked him to sacrifice Isaac, the son of promise, the child, through whom all of God's plans were supposed to unfold. Imagine Abraham's confusion, his heartbreak, his wrestling with a God whose instructions seemed to contradict everything he had been promised. Yet he obeyed, climbing that mountain with a heavy heart and a faith stretched to its breaking point. At the very moment when the knife was raised, when all seemed lost, God provided a ram caught in the thicket. Not a moment too early, not a moment too late, but exactly when provision was needed most. Abraham named that place, "The Lord will provide." But the Hebrew is even more beautiful. Jehovah Jireh literally means, "The Lord sees ahead." Before the need arose, before the crisis peaked, before the moment of desperation arrived, God had already seen and already prepared exactly what would be needed. I learned this truth in my own life during a season of financial strain that felt overwhelming. My freelance work had dried up. Unexpectedly, medical bills from my father's surgery were mounting, and the savings account I thought would last 6 months was depleted in 3. I remember lying awake, calculating and recalculating, trying to make the numbers work, feeling the weight of responsibility for my family's security pressing down like a physical force. The provision came from the most unexpected source. A client I had worked with 2 years earlier called out of the blue, asking if I would be interested in a project that would not only cover our immediate needs, but provide stability for the coming year. The timing was so precise, so impossible to orchestrate, that I knew I was experiencing Jehovah Jireh firsthand. God had seen my need before I even knew it was coming, and had been preparing the solution long before I knew to ask. But provision is not just financial. God provides strength for each day's portion, exactly what we need when we need it. He provides people who appear at just the right moment, with just the right words, or just the right helping hand. He provides opportunities that align with His purposes for our lives. Doors that open when we are not even looking. Invitations that change the trajectory of our stories. He provides wisdom when we face decisions that feel too big for our understanding. Insights that come in quiet moments. Clarity that emerges through conversations we didn't plan. Peace about choices that don't make sense to anyone else, but feel perfectly right in our spirits. He provides comfort in seasons of loss, hope in seasons of despair, courage in seasons of fear. We often misunderstand God's provision, expecting it to look like our planning arrive through our preferred channels, follow our timelines, and match our specifications. But Jehovah Jireh specializes in surprises, in provisions that come through unexpected sources in ways that increase our faith rather than our self-reliance. His provision rarely looks like our planning, because His ways are higher than our ways, His thoughts higher than our thoughts. The faith-building power of remembering cannot be overstated. When we create mental monuments to God's past faithfulness, we build confidence for future trust. Each story of provision becomes a building block in a fortress of faith that can withstand the storms of doubt and fear. This is why it is so important to tell our provision stories, to rehearse the moments when God showed up, to remember the ways He has been faithful even when current circumstances make His presence hard to see. Tonight, as you prepare for rest, I invite you to release anxiety about future needs into the capable hands of Jehovah Jireh. Trust in His perfect awareness of your circumstances, His proven track record of provision, His commitment to see you through whatever tomorrow may bring. Rest in the promise that the same God who provided a ram on Mount Moriah is watching over your life tonight. There is another name for God that brings such comfort to weary souls, and I want to share it with you in this sacred moment. Jehovah Rapha means the Lord who heals, and this healing touch reaches into every broken place in our lives with the tenderness of a loving father caring for a wounded child. The revelation of this name came at a place called Marah, where the Israelites found water in the desert, but discovered it was too bitter to drink. They were desperate, dying of thirst, surrounded by water they could not consume. Moses cried out to God, and the Lord showed him a tree. When Moses threw the tree into the bitter waters, they became sweet and life-giving. It was there that God revealed Himself as Jehovah Rapha, the Lord your healer, specializing in making bitter waters sweet, in transforming what is poisonous into what is nourishing. I learned about this healing power through my own journey with emotional wounds that seemed permanently etched into my soul. Growing up, I carried the pain of feeling invisible in my own family, the middle child who learned to disappear to avoid conflict. That wound shaped how I approached relationships for decades, always expecting to be overlooked, always prepared to be forgotten. The healing didn't come through one dramatic moment, but through a gradual process of God's love seeping into those broken places like warm honey into cracked earth. It happened through unexpected means, through a mentor who saw potential I couldn't see in myself, through a friend who consistently showed up when others disappeared, through moments of solitude where God's voice became clearer than my own inner critic, through scripture that seemed written specifically for my exact pain, words that reached across centuries to speak directly to my wounded heart. We all carry different types of wounds that need the healing touch of Jehovah Rapha. Physical ailments that drain our energy and limit our dreams. Chronic conditions that we wake up with every morning and carry through every day. Emotional wounds from betrayal, abandonment, abuse, or neglect that colored how we see ourselves and others. Relational rifts that feel too wide to bridge broken trust, that feels too shattered to rebuild. Marriages that feel more like battlegrounds than safe havens. Some of us struggle with spiritual dryness, feeling disconnected from the God we once felt so close to, going through the motions of faith while our hearts feel numb and distant. Others battle mental health challenges that make every day feel like climbing a mountain, anxiety that steals peace, depression that steals joy, thought patterns that feel more like prison cells than pathways to freedom. God's healing methodology is as varied as His people. Sometimes healing comes instantly, in moments that can only be called miraculous, when tumors disappear and sight returns, and hearts start beating normally again. More often, healing comes gradually, like dawn breaking slowly across a dark landscape, light returning degree by degree until we realize we can see clearly again. Sometimes, healing comes through medicine, through doctors whose hands become instruments of God's grace, through treatments that restore what disease has stolen. Sometimes, healing comes through miracle, through interventions that defy medical explanation and leave specialists shaking their heads in wonder. Always healing comes through His presence and love, through the simple but profound reality that we are not alone in our pain. Often, healing involves community and relationships through people who love us back to wholeness, who speak truth when we can only hear lies, who hold hope when our own hope is exhausted. Healing happens in rest, in the sacred space of sleep where our bodies regenerate, our memories process, our emotions settle into proper perspective. Sleep itself is a form of God's healing grace, a daily reset that repairs what the day has damaged. The scriptures are full of promises for healing that Jehovah Rapha wants to fulfill in our lives. By His wounds, we are healed, declares Isaiah, reminding us that Jesus carried our pain so we don't have to carry it forever. He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Promises the psalmist, assuring us that no wound is beyond His reach. No pain is too deep for His healing touch. Tonight, I want to invite Jehovah Rapha into the specific areas of your life that need His healing touch. Name those places of pain, whether physical, emotional, relational, or spiritual. Invite His presence into your deepest wounds, trusting His desire to make you whole. Believing that healing is not just possible, but promised to those who seek Him with sincere hearts. And now, let me share the most beautiful name of all, the one that brings such peace to troubled hearts. Jehovah Shalom means, the Lord is peace. And this is not just peace as a feeling, but peace as a foundation. Not peace as something we chase, but peace as a person. We know not peace dependent on our circumstances, but peace anchored in God's unchanging character. The revelation of this name came to Gideon during one of the most turbulent times in Israel's history. The Midianites were oppressing God's people, and Gideon was hiding in a winepress threshing wheat, in secret, afraid and overwhelmed by the circumstances beyond his control. When the angel of the Lord appeared to him, Gideon's first response was essentially, "If God is with us, why is everything falling apart?" Sound familiar? But God didn't answer Gideon's question with an explanation. Instead, He gave him a revelation. Peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of God in the middle of problems. Gideon built an altar there and called it Jehovah Shalom. The Lord is peace. Discovering that peace becomes our foundation when we understand it correctly. I learned this truth during a season when everything in my life seemed to be falling apart simultaneously. I lost my job due to company. Downsizing, my marriage was struggling under the weight of financial stress. My teenage son was making choices that kept me awake at night, with worry, and my aging mother needed more care than I felt equipped to provide. Chaos wasn't just knocking on my door, it had moved in, and was rearranging all the furniture. The moment peace descended happened on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was sitting in my car in a grocery store parking lot, overwhelmed by the simple task of deciding what to cook for dinner when everything else felt so complicated. I wasn't praying, wasn't reading scripture, wasn't doing anything particularly spiritual. I was just sitting there, feeling defeated, when suddenly, inexplicably, peace settled over me, like a warm blanket on a cold night. Nothing about my circumstances had changed. The job was still lost. The marriage still strained. My son still making questionable choices. My mother still needing care. I wasn't sure how to provide. But everything about my internal landscape had shifted. The frantic energy was replaced by calm certainty. The racing thoughts slowed to a manageable pace. The tight feeling in my chest loosened, and I could breathe deeply again. That peace sustained me through months of uncertainty, through job interviews that didn't pan out, through difficult conversations with my spouse, through sleepless nights waiting for my son to come home safely. It wasn't a feeling I had to conjure up or maintain through spiritual discipline. It was a person living in me, providing stability when everything external was unstable. True peace is not dependent on circumstances, but anchored in character. God's character, which never changes regardless of how much our circumstances fluctuate. Peace is not a feeling to chase, but a person to know. Not something we create through positive thinking or spiritual techniques, but something we receive through relationship with the Prince of Peace himself. Peace is both a choice and a gift. We can choose peace even when our emotions are in rebellion, even when our minds are spinning with worry, even when our hearts are heavy with grief. We choose peace by returning our thoughts to truth, by remembering God's faithfulness, by releasing control of outcomes we cannot determine anyway. But peace is also a gift that comes from beyond ourselves, a supernatural tranquility that transcends our ability to manufacture or maintain. The ripple effects of peace are remarkable. When we carry peace in our hearts, it affects everyone around us. Our families feel safer, our children more secure, our friends drawn to something they can't quite name, but deeply long for. We make better decisions from a peaceful mind than from an anxious one. See situations more clearly, respond, rather than react to the challenges life presents. Peace has physical benefits too. Reduced anxiety lowers blood pressure, improves sleep quality, strengthens immune function, aids digestion. Peace is not just good for our souls, it is good for our bodies, our relationships, our effectiveness in everything we attempt to accomplish. In the night hours, peace becomes especially precious. When the world is quiet and our minds are tempted to race with tomorrow's worries, once guards our thoughts like a gentle sentinel. God promises to guard our minds while we sleep, to provide restorative rest that refreshes rather than exhausts, to watch over our dreams and our rest with the vigilance of perfect love. The scriptures are rich with promises about peace that belong to every believer. Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. Jesus declared, not as the world gives, do I give to you. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. These are not wishful thinking or spiritual platitudes, but promises we can claim, foundations we can build on, realities we can experience tonight. As we prepare for sleep, let Jehovah Shalom settle over you like evening mist, gentle and pervasive, bringing calm to your racing thoughts, rest to your weary body, hope to your worried heart. Peace is not something you have to earn or achieve. It is something you receive from the one who is peace himself. Tonight, I choose peace. I place everything into your hands, Lord. Every financial worry, every relationship tension, every health concern, every future unknown. I release my children's welfare, my aging parents' needs, my career decisions, my personal dreams and desires into your capable care. I choose to trust your love, your wisdom, your timing, your provision. God never sleeps, so we can rest peacefully. He stations his angels around those who fear him, creating a protective perimeter around our sleep. He covers us with his wings, sheltering us through the vulnerable hours of night when we cannot protect ourselves. He works while we rest, moving mountains, preparing solutions, softening hearts, opening doors, orchestrating circumstances for our good and his glory. The scriptures promise that he gives sleep to his beloved, that we can lie down in peace because he alone makes us dwell in safety. That even at night, his song is with us, a lullaby of love that soothes our souls into restful surrender. These are not empty words, but living promises that transform how we approach the night hours. There is a mystery to God's nighttime work that takes faith to believe, but brings such comfort when we embrace it. While we sleep, he can move mountains. We haven't even asked him to move. He can prepare solutions to problems we haven't even thought of yet. He can be softening hearts that seem hardened beyond reach, opening doors that appear permanently closed, orchestrating circumstances in ways that will amaze us when we see his hand revealed. Tomorrow brings the promise of new mercies, fresh grace, renewed strength. His mercies are new. Every morning, great is his faithfulness. Tomorrow's challenges will be met with tomorrow's grace. Tomorrow's needs will be met with tomorrow's provision. God's presence is already waiting in our future, having gone before us, to prepare the way to be exactly what we need, exactly when we need it. I want to speak a blessing over your sleep tonight, dear friend. May the peace of God settle over you like a gentle blanket. May his presence fill your room like the warmth of morning sunlight. May his love surround you like the protective embrace of a loving parent. May you sleep deeply, dream peacefully, and wake refreshed in the knowledge that you are beloved, cherished, held safely in the hands of the one who holds all things together. If this prayer has brought comfort to your heart tonight, I would love to hear from you in the comments below. Share a prayer request, or simply let me know how God is working in your life. Your story might be the encouragement someone else needs to hear. And if you found peace in these words, please consider sharing this prayer with someone who might need this reminder of God's faithfulness. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more moments of prayer and peace together. Thank you for allowing me to pray with you tonight. May you rest in the assurance that nothing is lost in God's hands, even while you sleep. Rest now, beloved. Rest in the arms of the one who loves you more than you can imagine, watches over you with perfect vigilance, and has good plans for your tomorrow. Good night, and may God's peace be your pillow tonight.